So I just needed to what do you call it? Reload Spotify. My brain is farting. That's what happens when I'm not working. It's been hijacked. Fuckery. This is how we cope with story.
You are an expert jester, newly assigned to a far-off land, with a proud yet frightened people and a leader who is heavy and strong and kind of hot if you ignore the fact that he never shuts the fuck up. You are his closest counsel, and this has required some major rapport building on the fly, like kung fu lightsaber of empathy shit. Today, the leader is hangry, and he wants a joke that is funny to relieve the hangry. Be funny! Jester, an old Italian man, lived alone in the country. It was spring, and he wanted to dig his tomato garden as he had done every year. But it was very hard work for the aging man as the ground was hard. His only son, Vincent, who used to help him, was currently in prison. The old man wrote a letter to his son and described his predicament. Dear Vincent, I am feeling pretty bad because it looks like I won't be able to plant my tomato garden this year. I'm just getting too old to be digging up a garden plot. If only you were here, my troubles would be over.
Oh wow, thanks for
I
guilt.
know you would dig the plot for me. Love Dot. A few days later, he received a letter from his son. Dear Dad, not for nothing, but don't dig up that garden. That's where I buried the bodies. Love, Vinny at 4 The next morning, FBI agents and local police arrived at the old man's house and dug up the entire area. However, they didn't find any bodies, so they apologized to the old man and left. That same day, the old man received another letter from his son. Dear Dad, go ahead and plant the tomatoes now. That's the best I could do under the circumstances. Love, Vinny Jester. Several centuries ago, the Pope decided that all the Jews had to leave Rome. Naturally, there was a big uproar from the Jewish community. So the Pope made a deal.
You know how they are.
He would have a religious debate with a member of the Jewish community. If the Jews won, they could stay. If the Pope won, the Jews would leave. The Jews realized that they had no choice. They looked around for a champion who could defend their faith. But no one wanted to volunteer. It was too risky. So they finally picked an old man named Moish who spent his life sweeping up after people to represent them, figuring he had less to lose. Moish asked only for one addition to the debate, not being used to saying very much as he cleaned up around the settlement. He asked that neither side be allowed to talk. The Pope agreed to the debate. The day of the great debate came. Moish and the Pope sat opposite each other for a full minute before the Pope raised his hand and showed 3 fingers. Moish looked back at him and raised 1 finger.
The right one.
The Pope waved his fingers in a circle around his head. Moish pointed to the ground where he sat. The Pope pulled out a wafer and a glass of wine. Moish pulled out an apple. The Pope stood up and said, I give up. This man is too good. The Jews can stay. An hour later, the cardinals were all around the Pope asking him what happened. The Pope said, First I held up 3 fingers to represent the Trinity. He responded by holding up 1 finger to remind me that there was still one God common to both our religions. Then I waved my finger around me to show him that God was all around us. He responded by pointing to the ground and showing that God was also right here with us. I pulled out the wine and the wafer to show that God absolves us from our sins. He pulled out an apple to remind me of original sin. He had an answer for everything. What could I do? Meanwhile, the Jewish community had crowded around Moish. What happened? They asked. Well, said Moish. First he said to me that the Jews had 3 days to get out of here. I told him that not one of us was leaving. Then he told me that this whole city would be cleared of Jews. I let him know that we were staying right here. And then asked a woman. I don't know, said Moish. He took out his lunch, and I took out mine. The leader thinks you are absolutely fucking hilarious.
Oh, wow.
He rolls on the ground, holding his sides. He fucking loved it.
That's how diplomacy is.
Another. Tell me another. Kester. A blonde is watching the news with her husband when the newscaster says 2 Brazilian men die in a skydiving accident.
Brazil,
The blonde starts crying to her husband, sobbing. That's horrible. So many men dying that way. Confused, he replies, yes, dear, it is sad, but they were skydiving and there is always that risk involved. After a few minutes, the blonde, still sobbing, says, how many is a Brazilian? Just a soldier ran up to a nun. Out of breath, he asked, please, may I hide under your skirt? I'll explain later.
Give me the syndrome.
The nun agreed. A moment later, 2 military police ran up and asked, sister, have you seen the soldier? The nun replied, he went that way. After the MPS ran off, the soldier crawled out from under her skirt and said, I can't thank you enough, sister. You see, I don't want to go to Syria. The nun said, I understand completely. The soldier added, I hope I'm not rude, but you have a great pair of legs. The nun replied, if you had looked a little higher, you would have seen a great pair of balls. I don't want to go to Syria either. The leader goes silent. An uneasy look crosses his face.
Too soon?
Jester. What happened? The leader. I don't know. Jester. You have a great gift for storytelling, but you have just told 2 stories in which the characters do not get what they want. Jester. I am just giving the people what they want. The leader pauses for a moment, then gives a great sigh. What a pity, he exclaims in a very forlorn tone. He looks up to the heavens. Then he says, with a very profound expression on his face, oh God, do I want to be with you, or with the people? The people, sire, you exclaim. I want to be with the people, the leader says, and walks out of the room. For weeks you wait for the leader to return, but he never does. No one knows what happened to him. No one wants to talk about it. Everyone is very nervous, even the great general, Squirrel, whom you are very friendly with. Squirrel takes you aside and says, Jester, we need you to tell a joke. It will cheer us up. It will give us something to talk about. It will get us out of this funk. Please do it for us. What should the joke be about? You ask. Anything. Squirrel says, just make it funny. So you tell the joke. Jester, 3 old men are at the doctor for a memory test. The doctor says to the first old man, what is 3 times 3? 274, was his reply. The doctor says to the second man, it's your turn. What is 3 times 3? Tuesday, replies the second man. The doctor says to the third man, okay, your turn. What's 3 times 3? 9, says the third man. That's great, says the doctor. How did you get that? Simple, says the third man. I subtracted 274 from Tuesday. The general laughs, and so do his men. But at a slight delay, revealing such varied laughs as the laughter that is mostly confusion. The laughter that seeks to hide behind the general's laughter, the laugh that wishes to outlaugh them all. All such laughs way too long to be true and from the heart, and way too brief for suffocating hilarity. Their eyes remain cloudy. You see the leader, gazing from a distance at the general's reaction to your joke. Jester, why is everyone so tense? Squirrel, don't you know Jester? The leader's missing. We can't find him anywhere. No one knows what happened to him. No one wants to talk about it. Everyone is very nervous. That's why I asked you to tell a joke. It would give us something to talk about. It would get us out of this funk. Jester, it's not my fault. I was just doing what you asked me to do.
I'm in a funk.
Squirrel,
Make me laugh.
it's not your fault. Jester, you are a very good storyteller, but you have just told 2 stories in which the characters do not get what they want.
That's what comedy is!
We all know that's not true. That's not how the world works.
In comedy
That's
land
not
it
how
is.
it is supposed to be.
That's why it's funny.
Jester, I'm sorry, Squirrel.
Hence,
I didn't mean to upset everyone.
jokes are funnier when you explain why they're funny.
It's not your fault. Jester, you are a very good storyteller, but you have just told 2 stories in which the characters do not get what they want. We all know that's not true. That's not how the world works. That's not how it is supposed to be.
What are you, a focus group?
Squirrel nods solemnly. The general does not understand. He turns to his men and says, "You know what this means, don't you?"
I can have my balls.
The men nod.
Okay.
It means we have to go find the leader.
Oh, thank
The
God.
general says, "We'll start at the edge of the forest." The men say, "That's a good idea." The general says, "I'll go with you." You turn to the general and say, "Wait, I have a better idea." "What is it, Jester?" The general asks, "Why don't we start at the center of the forest?" You say, "That way, we'll be sure to find him." The general thinks for a moment, then says, "That's a very good idea, Jester. We'll start at the center of the forest."
But how?
"But I have to warn you." You say, "The center of the forest is a very dangerous place.
Access it from the outskirts.
There are wild animals and poisonous plants. It's not a place for the faint of heart."
Or some
I
of the
understand.
teleportation system.
The general says, "But we have to find the leader. We have to find him before it's too late." The men agree.
These men.
"Very well." The general says, "We'll start at the center of the forest. But be careful. It's a very dangerous place." The men nod and follow the general into the forest. Squirrel says, "Wait, I have a better idea." "What is it, Squirrel?" You ask. "Let's start at the center of the forest." Squirrel says, "That way, we'll be sure to find the leader." "That's a very good idea, Squirrel." You say, "But I have to warn you. The center of the forest is a very dangerous place. There are wild animals and poisonous plants. It's not a place for the faint of heart."
But for people who
I
know
understand, Squirrel says. "But we have to find the leader. We have to find him before it's too late."
nature.
The men
Think about
agree. "Very well." Squirrel says, "We'll start at the center of the forest. But be careful. It's a very dangerous place." The men nod and follow Squirrel into the forest. A few minutes later, you hear the sound of gunfire. You run to the edge of the forest and see the men running back towards you. They are covered in blood and they are terrified. "What happened?" You ask. "The leader," the men say. "We found him. He's dead." "What?" You say. "How could he be dead?" "The general shot him," the men say. "He said he had to do it. He said the leader was a traitor." "A traitor?" You say. "How could he be a traitor?" "He was working with the enemy," the men say. "He was giving them information. He was betraying us."
Well, that's the definition, alright.
"How could you be so sure?" You say. "How could you be sure he was a traitor?" "We found a note in his pocket," the men say.
This smells like
"It was addressed to the enemy. It was a list of our
onions.
troop movements. It was a betrayal."
Oui.
"I see," you say. "So the general shot him." "Yes," the men say. "And then he told us to come back and tell you. He said you would understand."
What?
"I understand," you say. "Thank you for telling me." The men nod and walk away. You turn to Squirrel and say, "What do you think of this, Squirrel?" "I think it's a tragedy." Squirrel says, "I think the leader was a great man. I think he was betrayed." Not knowing what to say that is appropriate, the jester said, "A shame. Tragedy." He just left the words on the table, not knowing the desired placement of them into a sentence. leaving the words without an owner for the time being. The jester wanted to put them back in his mouth, because he did not mean to say them. He only wanted to fulfill the unsaid requirement of the role, that of being the communicator of the party. Yet it left a sour aftertaste of uncertainty. He had not had the last words. As he reflected upon them, he wondered if he was saying these words to protect his own sense of what was right and just, but that did not seem right, so he left the sentence to fend for itself, to find its owner, until a different jester arrived and filled in the blanks with something a bit more entertaining and yet equally profound, though still without a real owner or a real meaning to go with it. As he was looking for the leader, he noticed that there were many animals and plants around him. He wondered if he was really in a dangerous place. As he was thinking about this, he saw a snake. The snake was very big and it was coiled around a tree. The jester was very scared, but he tried to stay calm. He slowly moved away from the snake, but it followed him. The jester was very scared, but he tried to stay calm. He slowly moved away from the snake, but it followed him. The jester was very scared, but he tried to stay calm. He slowly moved away from the snake, but it followed him. I am not afraid of you. No, I am sorry for lying. I hope it means we can stay people who don't try to kill each other. Deal, said the jester, bravely facing the snake. Deal, said the snake. The snake uncoiled itself and slithered away. The jester breathed a sigh of relief. I am glad we could come to an understanding, said the jester. I was very scared, but I am glad we could come to an understanding. I am glad we could come to an understanding too, said the snake. I was very scared too. Let's be friends, said the jester. Let's be friends, said the snake. And they were friends, and they stayed friends for the rest of their lives. The end. As he was looking for the leader, he noticed that there were many animals and audience, not all out.
Wait, what? Wait, what is preventing it from...
Audience. What the hell? Jester. What? Audience. You gonna let him move in with you or something? Jester. We're just friends. Audience. But he's a snake. Jester. I'm sorry, is this an allegory? I don't do allegories. Not my specialty. Audience. Not all allegories. No, some yes. Jester. If the director felt comfortable doing an allegory, then maybe he would have given me some inkling as to that style or how he or she was planning to implement such things within this script, particularly because my job is to make him and his guests and his products, movies, musical albums, novels, internet shows, and characters and worlds they can sell over and over in more ways, look good. Without being judgmental or harsh in tone or words, and making sure the audience hears and listens in geek, less in guffaws. If such important methods as ambiguous plots weren't clear or included to the director or his team, he should have felt it my duty as a jester to warn them with a note during filming, and maybe recommend something suitable for use, which allows me to do my job, not become so focused on individual problems from their lack of foresight for the lack of understanding of narrative structure I suggest is far outside his capabilities. There is no allegory. There is an established setup where most questions which need to be clarified have been clarified by example. Just be kind enough not to interrupt as to force a clarification on a previous thing. I have not the time nor the impatient, subversive little heart for doing so right now, which I had already specified from an explanation which just happened to explain other circumstances at one point. We are friends. Nothing to read into that which does not exist, good sir and madam. We shall move along, thank you. We aren't making and selling this right here. The movie people are. Isn't there a thing we could be covering? Audience. It was just feedback. Audience's mother. Yeah, lighten up. Jester. Well, unless it's actually notes or questions, or can a man not finish a simple task? That seems possible when things are being overly critical and snippy with absolutely no relation to what's currently going on here. Excuse me, please, for simply being grateful for an ease of relationship with any and everything. My point isn't lost because you don't agree. It just needs to be accepted and processed at a moment for which would be pleasing for use. Honestly, sir and madam, I'm sure such rudeness is beyond this crowd. Don't trouble me. Again. Audience. Excuse me, what if? Jester. No, that's beyond unreasonable. Maybe you'd like to stick with those of a less technical mind state and will leave the criticizing, for I have a wide base of popular respect as all you sit in your 2 or 3 row theater house behind doors, I'm guessing where you sleep at night together within city street apartment places next to alleys in the low-lit spaces where dead babies sit up often to waddle down the halls after the noise of sirens is silenced. Why on? If anyone would be upset over us continuing, could careless I, yet just careless without blame, sir and madam. Dad, leave him alone.
He's dead.
Bass player from the improv show, he might have performed alongside this jester at some point, but he's wasting our time. This isn't the audience. I should be doing a workshop in this area. Jester, be nice and kick them out if they don't listen. They'll take up a whole row. Get another seat, bitch. Yesterday, they tried to hinder an old African jazz guitarist performing here during her turn. I will ban each from everywhere in town. I know what was in the domes. They keep appearing despite bans. My men have put a bounty of dollars to get her away from your shit fucks. You stop trying to trap new players to fill empty seating just off a big-time gig. Your dad made my brother kill your mom, and she did the same but reversed. Only eat green, without it we kill. So back out of my building and get lost before today of performances run. Longer so, I say another will die for her. This round gets an extra break time to start our way to even for the deaths avoided this festival. Sid, like the old you would have been had your grandpa not been trapped for months under trees for daring to approach their work. Shaved oldie boy's head again once with your father's razor blade. Kid the second last we started with this month's game. I know better keep hunting. You do not count any man who still holds 2 nipples now fully showing. Audience. Wait, you did what? Audience's mom. This got juicy fast. My daughters love this shit that singer before she stopped being so rich or became so involved in that strange white women clothes problem. Was so pretty, and it said she was a killer and how much her voice screeched at such higher peak points. You make a mistake so scary. Pieces. Just a bit. I was rather at the heartbreak now, and this just can't seem to decide, so the speech portion is at its ending, as I assume in the 18th century to close stage sets we all felt natural when they ended without resolve. Remember times like no pay now for either side, yet I lived on apples taken off trees, those who wished an audience. Or both worked hard or stayed low for fear of the time people would knock down tent posts out of anger. Fear we both lose interest as actors often quit, for this only later were written as something else to prove artistic skill, even when to meet I've wondered did some. Wrote their moments too hastily, which in all likeliness ruined some, if not all things, others, yet the work shall be completed is there not many other jobs calling our name. A good even in equal parts to all once forgotten for time's effect, are we the now for future? A goal not quite set, perhaps sorry and here and yet, and a sad story has risen and falls our best saved for fountain, sir and madam. Something better discussed with your pastor or public leader maybe, or with only you and no one else knows. as such talks are based largely within personal histories that serve only as private discussion between parent and guardian kind folks of tender age, sir and madam. Oh, Jesus, the church is here to bring us down. Surprise. Maybe go forth to be baptized one day for your forgiveness of what you saw. Poor fellows, let us move forward from ourselves quickly. Sometimes life brings on moments that cannot live upon stage. No in-between acts. Wife who came due to curiosity gained the hard, fun kind off Facebook. The happy kind. From talking again to a man last seen several lives ago. She is just beyond audience space, probably near coffee machine as this. This is supposed to end soon. Yet never ending at the moment, though the show is doing better than normal as most tend to judge their actions more precisely, aware of themselves and their moments being out. However, regardless, she will listen or it's on. The knife with its well-known places must come. She and many would watch the chaos and laugh. She would do more. However, in addition, as could be the fact of an accident, they would do for none. Wanted results, but none should now have. So thank Jesus the show closes. A good man like him would be sad. Things are all right in both times. We got a good review from the local pervert Picayune. And while perhaps that makes us really great amongst other comedies in the Canadian South, well, fuck you. It was the late 60s when the local comedy team named Jester took to the stage after spending a majority of their time working hard to help beat back Napoleon. All this after finally coming home after visiting Egypt, in which they had bought all they could carry out and selling it in Asia, including the African colonial states. When news of the Frenchmen invaded such a British-loving place, it made a lot of sense they would go back. But that's all for this new TV show about a school of diplomat jesters. Very high concept. We might need to kill you just to film it. Just leave for good on a real island, with the hope it survives when time runs through it from ocean tide. I bet this is where history teaches young men like our jesters failed. A note he and the audience tried to make happen. Just be glad not them aren't done. Thank you, and good show tonight. That's all, people, and go home like it has officially done. Thank you, in addition, good night. Put some mask. Quickly now, you dumb mother. Just and do.